2 words I never expected to hear from my own father. Yet there he sat behind his mahogany desk, his steel-gray eyes fixed on me with a coldness I'd never seen before. The office felt suffocating, despite the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. "Dad, if you just listen about the Henderson account." He held up his hand, silencing me. "It's Mr. Matthews in this office, Alexandra. And the Henderson account was the final straw. Your innovative approach cost us a $12 million contract." I gripped the arms of my chair, forcing myself to stay calm. The traditional approach wasn't working. If we just tried my strategy for one more month. Enough. He slammed his hand on the desk, making his Best CEO award rattle. "This isn't some startup playground where you can experiment with wild ideas. This is Matthews and Sons, a company that's been built on tradition and proven methods for 40 years. I could back a laugh at the irony of Matthews and Sons, considering I, his only daughter, had worked here since I was 16, starting in the mailroom and working my way up through every department. Meanwhile, my younger brother David had waltzed in straight from business school into a vice president position. "The board agrees with me," he continued, shuffling some papers on his desk. "You're not cut out for business, Alexandra. Not at this level. Maybe something smaller would suit you better. A boutique shop, perhaps, or a small local consulting firm." The condescension in his voice made my blood boil. I stood up slowly, smoothing down my charcoal gray suit, the same one I'd worn to countless meetings where I'd brought in millions in new business. Business that apparently didn't matter now. "You're making a mistake," I said quietly. He didn't even look up. "Your severance package will be handled by HR. Please clear out your office by the end of the day." I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Dad?" He glanced up, irritation flashing across his face. Remember this moment. The walk to my office felt like a funeral march. Employees quickly looked away as I passed, news of my firing already spreading through the corporate grapevine. Only Janet, my assistant for the past 5 years, met my eyes. "I heard," she said, following me into my office. "It's not right, Alex. Everyone knows the Henderson account was lost because David promised them impossible delivery dates." I started packing my belongings into a cardboard box. "Doesn't matter now. David's a Matthews son, and I'm just the daughter who doesn't understand traditional business." Janet watched me take down my framed Harvard MBA and various awards. "What will you do?" I carefully wrapped the photo of my mother. She passed away when I was 12, but I still remembered her last words to me. "Don't let them dim your light, sweetheart. Shine anyway." "I'm going to build something," I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. "Something bigger than Matthews and Sons could ever be." Janet's eyes lit up. "Need an executive assistant?" I smiled, really looked at her for the first time that day. Janet wasn't just an assistant. She was a brilliant operations manager trapped in an administrative role because of the old boys club mentality at Matthews and Sons. "How about chief operations officer instead?" Her eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." I handed her my personal card, the one without the Matthews and Sons logo. "Call me tomorrow if you're interested. And Janet, don't tell anyone about this conversation." The elevator ride down to the lobby was surreal. 15 years of my life, reduced to one cardboard box. I'd given everything to this company, sacrificed relationships, worked weekends and holidays, brought in major accounts that had doubled our revenue. And none of it mattered, because I wasn't a son. As I pushed through the revolving doors onto 5th Avenue, my phone buzzed. A text from David. "Tough break. sis. But don't worry, I'll take good care of your clients. Maybe retail is more your speed. I didn't respond. Instead, I hailed a cab and gave the driver an address in Brooklyn. Time to visit the one person who had always believed in me. 20 minutes later, I climbed the stairs to a modest brownstone and knocked on the familiar red door. It opened to reveal an elegant woman in her 70s, her silver hair perfectly coiffed despite the late hour. Alexandra? My grandmother's eyes narrowed as she took in my appearance and the box in my arms. He didn't. He did. She ushered me inside, straight through to her cozy kitchen where a pot of tea was already brewing. Some things never changed. Grandma Rose always seemed to know when she was needed. Tell me everything, she said, setting out her best china teacups. So I did. I told her about the Henderson account, about David's impossible promises, about Dad's coldness, and the board's decision. She listened without interrupting, her bright blue eyes, so different from my father's gray ones, taking in every detail. When I finished, she got up and walked to her study. I heard her opening drawers, shuffling papers. She returned with a thick manila envelope. I've been waiting for this day, she said, sliding the envelope across the table. Your mother knew it would come too. She made me promise to give you this when it did. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was another envelope, sealed with wax, and a folder filled with documents. My eyes widened as I read through them. Grandma, this is your mother's inheritance, she finished. The one your father knows nothing about. Her family's shipping company holdings, real estate investments, everything she built before she married him. All in a trust, waiting for you. I stared at the numbers. Millions. Not as much as Matthews and Sons was worth, but more than enough to start something new. Why didn't you tell me before? Grandma Rose took a sip of her tea. Because your mother knew you needed to try it his way first, to give him a chance to see your worth. She set down her cup with a decisive clink. He failed that test rather spectacularly, wouldn't you say? I looked at the documents again, plans already forming in my mind. The Henderson account. They were looking for exactly what I proposed. Innovation, modernization, a fresh approach. Then perhaps, Grandma Rose smiled, it's time to show them what Alexandra Matthews can really do. I stayed at my grandmother's house late into the night planning. By the time I left, I had the beginnings of a strategy that would change everything. Dad thought I wasn't cut out for business. Fine. I'd show him exactly what kind of business I was cut out for. The game was about to change, and Matthews and Sons wouldn't know what hit them until it was too late. 1 year later, the Henderson Group's downtown headquarters buzzed with anticipation. In the main conference room, Janet, now my COO, was setting up for our presentation. Through the glass walls, I could see Thomas Henderson himself pacing, checking his watch every few minutes. They're here, Janet whispered, glancing at her tablet. Matthews and Sons representatives just arrived in the lobby. I smoothed down my tailored Armani suit, crimson red, a far cry from the conservative grays and blacks my father preferred. Right on time to watch their biggest account slip away. Alex. Janet's eyes sparkled with mischief. Did you plan this? The presentation time? Pure coincidence. I smiled. The fact that my father and brother are desperate to keep Henderson's business while I'm here to take it. Now that's just good strategy. The last year had been a whirlwind. Using my mother's inheritance and Grandma Rose's connections, I'd built Nova Enterprises from the ground up. We specialized in exactly what Matthews and Sons feared most: innovative business solutions for the digital age. Janet had been instrumental, bringing over key talent who'd been overlooked at Matthews and Sons. Turns out, I wasn't the only one tired of traditional methods. The conference room door opened. Thomas Henderson entered, followed by his board members, and behind them, looking significantly more worn than the last time I'd seen them, came my father and brother. Dad stopped short when he saw me, his face draining of color. David actually took a step backward, nearly colliding with a board member. "Alexandra?" My father's voice cracked slightly. "Mr. Matthews?" I replied coolly, extending my hand. What a surprise. I wasn't aware Matthews and Sons would be joining us today. Thomas Henderson looked between us, confusion evident on his face. "You know each other?" "Ms. Matthews used to work for us," my father said stiffly, ignoring my outstretched hand. "Matthews?" Thomas raised an eyebrow. "Any relation?" "Just a former employee," Dad cut in quickly. "Actually," I smiled, "I'm his daughter, but that's ancient history. Shall we begin the presentation?" The next hour was a masterclass in everything my father had dismissed as wild ideas. I showed them Nova's digital transformation strategy, our AI-driven analytics, our cloud-based solutions, everything the Henderson Group had wanted a year ago when Matthews and Sons had insisted on sticking to outdated methods. David's face grew increasingly red as board members nodded appreciatively. My father sat stone-faced, but I could see his hands clenching under the table. "Very impressive, Ms. Matthews," Thomas said when I finished. "This is exactly what we've been looking for. But I have to ask, why didn't you propose these solutions when you were with Matthews and Sons?" The room went silent. All eyes turned to my father. "Oh, but I did," I replied softly. "In fact, it was my last presentation before leaving the company. Wasn't it, Mr. Matthews?" Dad's jaw tightened. Before he could respond, Thomas Henderson stood up. "Well, I think we've seen everything we need. Ms. Matthews, your proposal is exactly what the Henderson Group needs to move forward. I believe our legal team already has the contracts drawn up." "What?" David spluttered. "You can't be serious. We've handled your business for 20 years. And in those 20 years, you've fallen behind every technological advancement in the industry," Thomas replied firmly. "It's time for a change." As the contracts were being signed, I caught my father's eye. He looked older somehow, defeated. Part of me felt a twinge of sympathy, but then I remembered that day in his office, his cold dismissal of everything I tried to build. The Henderson account was just the beginning. Over the next 6 months, Nova Enterprises systematically targeted Matthews and Sons' biggest clients. We didn't poach them. We simply offered them what they've been begging for: innovation, efficiency, results. One by one, they jumped ship. Then came the day I'd been waiting for. Janet burst into my office, her face flushed with excitement. "Alex, you need to see this." She handed me her tablet. On the screen was a financial news article: "Matthews and Sons stock plummets amid client exodus. Bankruptcy fears loom." Below was a photo of my father leaving his office, looking haggard. The caption read, "CEO Robert Matthews declines to comment on company's future." My phone rang. Grandma Rose's number. "I just saw the news," she said when I answered. "How are you feeling?" I looked out my office window at the Manhattan skyline. From here, I could see the Matthews and Sons building, no longer the towering symbol of success it once was. I didn't do this for revenge. I said quietly. I know, darling. You did it because it needed to be done. Because sometimes the only way to fix a broken system is to build something better. They're going to lose everything, aren't they? Unless someone steps in to save them. There was a knowing tone in her voice. Someone who understands both innovation and tradition. Before I could respond, Janet appeared in my doorway again, her face serious. Alex, your father is here. He's asking to see you. I took a deep breath. Send him in. Alexandra. Grandma Rose said quickly, remember what your mother always said. Don't let them dim your light. I finished. I remember. No, dear. The other thing, she said. Sometimes the strongest bridges are built over the deepest divides. I hung up and straightened my shoulders as Janet showed my father in. He looked nothing like the imposing figure who'd fired me a year ago. His suit was wrinkled, his tie slightly askew. Alexandra, he said softly, we need to talk. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the same position I'd been in that day in his office. How the tables had turned. Yes, I replied, I believe we do. My father sat across from me, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. The mighty Robert Matthews, reduced to asking his incompetent daughter for help. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. The board is meeting tomorrow, he began, his voice rough. They're voting on whether to file for bankruptcy or seek immediate merger. He paused, swallowing hard. David's already resigned. Took a position with Goldman Sachs this morning. Of course he had. David had always been good at abandoning ship when things got tough. And you're here because? I kept my voice neutral, professional. Because you won. He looked up, meeting my eyes. You did exactly what I said you couldn't do. Built something remarkable. Modern. Successful. His hands trembled slightly. While I watched 40 years of work crumble because I was too proud, too stubborn to change. I leaned back in my chair, studying him. Did you ever wonder why I stayed at Matthews & Sons for 15 years? Working my way up from the mailroom when you could have given me a top position like you did David. He shook his head. Because I loved that company. Not for its name, not for its prestige, but for what it could be. Every innovation I suggested, every change I tried to implement, it wasn't to destroy tradition. It was to help Matthews & Sons evolve. And I shut you down at every turn, he admitted quietly. Yes, you did. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. Do you know what really hurt, Dad? Not the firing. Not even choosing David over me. It was that you never once asked why I thought we needed to change. Tell me now. I turned back to face him. Because business isn't about maintaining what worked yesterday. It's about building what will work tomorrow. Mom understood that. It's why her family's shipping company survived when all their competitors went under. His head snapped up. Your mother's company. But that was sold after she died. No, Dad, it wasn't. I pulled out the documents Grandma Rose had given me that night, sliding them across the desk. Mom left it in trust for me. She knew someday I'd need it, either to save Matthews & Sons or to build something new. He stared at the papers, realization dawning on his face. All this time, she knew. She saw in you what I couldn't. What you wouldn't, I corrected gently. He nodded, accepting the truth of it. So this is it then. You'll watch Matthews & Sons dissolve, knowing you were right all along. I pressed the intercom. Janet, bring in the proposal, please. Janet entered with a thick folder, placing it on my desk with a knowing smile before leaving us alone again. What's this? my father asked. A merger proposal. Nova Enterprises wants to acquire Matthews and Sons. His eyes widened. You'd buy us out? No. I sat down again, opening the folder. I'm proposing a true merger. Nova's innovation and digital expertise combined with Matthews and Sons' 40 years of industry relationships and experience. Not destroying tradition, but evolving it. You'd save the company? After everything? You once told me I wasn't cut out for business, I said, pushing the proposal toward him. But what you never understood is that real business isn't about crushing competitors or maintaining power. It's about building something lasting, something meaningful. He picked up the proposal with shaking hands. And the name. Matthews Nova, I replied, honoring the past while embracing the future. And my role? You'd stay on as Chairman Emeritus, focusing on client relationships, what you've always done best. I'd be CEO, leading the company's strategic direction. I paused. As equals this time, father and daughter, finally working together instead of against each other. He was quiet for a long moment, reading through the proposal. Finally, he looked up, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Respect. Your mother would be so proud of you, he said softly. She'd be proud of us both, if we can make this work. He stood up, straightening his tie, a glimpse of the Robert Matthews of old. The board meets at 9 tomorrow morning. Join me. I'll be there. After he left, I called Grandma Rose. Well, she asked, how did it go? We're merging the companies. Matthews Nova, bringing the best of both worlds together. She chuckled. Your mother always said the strongest bridges are built over the deepest divides. You've built quite a bridge, Alexandra. The next morning, I stood beside my father in the Matthews and Sons boardroom, the same room where I'd presented countless proposals that had been rejected. The board members watched in stunned silence as we presented the merger plan together. The vote was unanimous. Later that afternoon, I sat in what had once been my father's office, now mine. The Best CEO award still stood on the shelf, but beside it now sat a framed photo of my mother. Janet knocked and entered. The press release is ready. Want to take a look? I smiled, thinking of how far we'd both come. In a minute. First, call the Henderson Group. I want to personally tell them about the merger. Already done, she grinned. Thomas Henderson said, and I quote, it's about time those Matthews women took charge. I laughed, then turned to look out at the city. Somewhere out there, in an office much like this one, my father was probably doing the same thing, seeing New York not as it was, but as it could be. A year ago, he'd fired me for not understanding business. Now together, we were building something neither of us could have created alone. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's showing them a better way forward. And sometimes, just sometimes, the black sheep of the family becomes